believe. And I think this is really important. So, before I start, I'd like you to watch this very short video.
Training fleas requires a glass jar with a lid. The fleas are placed inside the jar and the lid is then sealed. They are left undisturbed for 3 days. Then, when the jar is opened, the fleas will not jump out. In fact, the fleas will never jump higher than the level set by the lid. Their behaviour is now set for the rest of their lives. And when these fleas reproduce, their offspring will automatically follow their example.
All right. So what happened? Before the rhetorical question, before the researcher put a cap on the jar, in case you couldn't see, the fleas were able to jump out. It only took 3 short days to convince them otherwise for the rest of their lives. Not only did those fleas never jump higher than the cap, their offspring never jumped higher than the cap. In 3 short days, the flea's behavior was controlled and limited by expectation. You see, fleas aren't very resilient creatures. Once the expectation of how high they could jump was set, even by that external force, they conformed and were never able to, pun intended, bounce back. Has this ever happened to you? Has anyone ever told you that you couldn't do something, that you weren't good at something, and you believed them? This happened a lot to me, in both small and big ways while I was growing up.
What's this? Oh.
The first real memory I have of this was in kindergarten. I was so excited to go to school. I was a pleaser. I wanted my teacher to like me. And it happened when I was coloring. My teacher came up to me while I was coloring a picture, and she told me I was coloring wrong. That was probably my reaction at the time, and it's my reaction now. But think about this. I was 5 years old, and I remember that experience. And this is the tricky thing. This is the tricky thing about capping expectations, because she didn't tell me I was a failure. She didn't tell me I couldn't color. She told me I was coloring wrong. But because I had been happily coloring my whole life, with nothing but encouragement and praise, it only took one criticism to devastate me. Has this ever happened to you? So what happened after that? My beliefs about my own abilities to color, to draw, to eventually create were capped. And that's the tricky thing about expectations. Because more often than not, we are our own worst enemies. In that moment, my brain said, I'm coloring wrong. I'm no good at this. I don't like how that felt. So I'm not going to try anymore. So I didn't. I stopped trying. I've never had Miss Bennett and Mr. Brett Cook, who are teaching art. I've never taken an art class. And that's really sad, because I love to create. I think I could probably be a pretty good artist. I capped myself. Later, this happened to me again in sports. I have a younger brother. Lots of you have siblings, and just like siblings do, my brother teased me a lot. He used to tell me, you throw like a girl. You run like a girl. Now, girls, first of all, that is not an insult. But I knew he meant it as one. He was telling me I wasn't very good at it. What made it worse is that he had natural ability that I didn't have. so he didn't have to work as hard as I did. So what happened? I stopped trying. I never tried out for a sports team. I skied because that was an individual sport, but I never had to worry about being told on a court that I wasn't good at soccer or basketball or volleyball, etc. The end result is that I never got to see what I was capable of. I never did. I never tried. When we believe what we're told by our teachers, our families, our friends, society, ourselves, just like fleas, you guys, we limit ourselves. We limit our capabilities by closing doors and opportunities for ourselves that we can't even imagine. What I lacked back then, related at least to art and sports, was resiliency and persistence. Resiliency and perseverance. Watch this. All right. I love that video, and yes, it's a tribute to moms, and I'm a mom, but that's not why I love it. I love it because it shows the natural progression of what we get when we try hard at something. We all fell thousands of times before we could walk. Most of us probably couldn't ride a bike the first time we tried. It meant something to us, so we kept getting up. We tried again and again and again until we succeeded. And while it's true that some people have more natural talent than others, my brother is a really good athlete, no one gets truly good at something without trying. And that takes resiliency. The ability to pick yourself up and try again. The ability to believe that just because you can't do it today doesn't mean you can't do it tomorrow. Now, you've probably heard of Michael Jordan. He's one of the very best basketball players of all time, but he did not start out that way. He was cut from his freshman basketball team and told by his coach that he would probably never amount to much on the basketball court. What made Michael Jordan different? What did he have that others didn't? He had resiliency. But not only that, you guys, he didn't get where he did with resiliency alone. He also had a passion and a perseverance to keep him going and motivated to keep going. Michael Jordan said, "I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take a game-winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed." This idea that failure leads to success and that resiliency and perseverance are keys that lead to growth is called grit. Grit and resilience don't just apply to sports or art. These concepts apply to everything that we do. How many of you have failed a test? How many of you have missed more than you thought you would on an assignment? How many of you feel really confused sometimes when Mr. Philippi or Ms. Steedick or Ms. Lamb or Mr. Condon are talking about a scientific concept? All right. That was almost everyone. When looking at those grades or feeling that way, you might see it as a sign that you're no good at this. You can't do it. It's too hard. Hang with me, I only have a couple minutes left. It may be any subject or anything you try, but what we too often forget, what we don't tell ourselves enough, is that failure, struggle, falling down, not understanding something is a part of learning. In fact, I would argue that falling down, not understanding this concept, that getting that low score on the test, that isn't failure at all. It's growing. Getting things wrong and struggling, it's all a part of the learning process. So this year at Marshall, we are going to focus on resiliency, growth, and grit to help us all, every person in this room, myself included, become better at everything we do. We can all learn, we can all grow. And we have an amazingly talented and dedicated group of teachers to help us get there. In fact, students, I hope you prove to me that you can do this, because teachers, I'd like you to come down here for a second. Teachers and staff, I'd like you all to come down here for a second, please. And staff, I'd like you to line up behind me. Line up in a long line. And students, you're going to sit there and behave without the adults waiting to remind you. Boys, yellow house, green house, please look forward. Look at these amazing teachers you have. I'll wait. And teachers, I'd like you to come together, and you guys are going to see a little bit about me right now. I'd like you to hold hands, teachers. Okay, stop. Listen. Look at us. You are going to spend the next 6.5 hours every day for the next 9.5 months with us. In that time, we all deeply believe in you. We believe in Marshall. And we believe in the concept of family, which is why I asked them to hold hands. They have great relationships with each other. They talk to each other about you. They come in way before they need to. They stay way longer than they need to. They call people at night. They work on weekends. They don't have to do any of that. They do it for you. They're amazing. Let's give them a huge round of applause.